Our family gets really busy in the summer. I mean, we're busy all year round, but in the summer, it's even more intense. We are rarely spending the weekends at home. We're usually traveling somewhere, and during the week, I love to take hikes with the baby. I love to go on bike rides, and I will very often go to friends' houses or just go outside with some friends, maybe to a playground or something like that. And with all these travels, what it means is that I need to make sure I have plenty of food that I can just grab and take it with me. Sometimes I'm fine with just a simple snack, but sometimes I need like real food, something that we can have for lunch. And I thought since this past week and a half or so, I was having a lot of those things, a lot of those plans, and I was making a lot of those things that I would film it and share it with you for some inspiration. And I'm starting with this, what the cookbook calls it, Mediterranean sheetpan eggs. I'm finally using that cookbook that you always see me have on display on the counter. So I'm using that, and even though I'm going with the recipe from that cookbook, I rarely follow it exactly. But I'm starting with what it says, which is to bake some tomatoes and red onions in the oven. The recipe called for cherry tomatoes. I didn't have those. I just used the regular ones that I had. And I've realized later that I should have cut the onions more, like not leave them in these longer strips, because those were then a little bit more difficult for my baby and all the other babies that shared this meal with us to chew them. So if you are planning to make this baby friendly, then I would suggest cut up the onions more. While all of that was in the oven, I prepared the egg mixture. So I think I ended up using 10 eggs. I think 8 would have been fine. Like, it ended up being very thick. I mean, it was nice either way, but I think 8 would have been fine for the size of the dish that I was using. So I whisked all the eggs together, added some salt and some spices that I use whenever I make scrambled eggs. And so the original recipe also then calls for zucchini in there, some arugula, feta cheese. I didn't have any of those three, so I just skipped them all together. I did have mozzarella cheese though, so that's what I cut up, and that's what I then put on top. Once I have poured the egg mixture over the onions and the tomatoes, I just put all the mozzarella slices on top of that, returned it to the oven for another 20 minutes or so, and then it was done. And I can definitely recommend this. I've got maybe 3 or 4 compliments on this. So I was actually taking this to like a bigger play date that we had with some of the other moms that I meet up with, and so many of them have said that they really like this. So I will definitely be doing this one again. I'm starting on some bread here. Now, this isn't really specifically a food to go, but it's just so easy to have that on hand. And obviously, like, you could use that, and I do sometimes use bread to make sandwiches or to just have something with us when we are going outside. But mostly, really, I take it with us on the weekends when we go and see my family, for example, for the weekend, because everyone just enjoys this bread so much. But I've made an entire video only this bread recipe that I'm doing. So if you want to see like the full version with me explaining every step in a lot of detail, then up on the screen you will see a link to that video. But in very short, I mix some flour. I use two kinds of flour, regular all-purpose white flour and some whole wheat rye flour at the moment. I mix those two, add in some water, mix all that up. And then a little bit later, I add in my sourdough starter, some salt and some cumin. And I do a few stretch and folds throughout the day. And once those are done and the bread has nicely risen, I put it into a proofing basket and I put that into the fridge overnight. And the next day in the morning, I bake the bread. Another favorite of mine that I make quite often is some super simple apple puree. And even though this is super simple because literally the only thing I'm doing is peeling some apples, cutting them up, cooking them for a little bit until they are soft, mashing them up, putting them into the jars and then boiling those jars. Like, I'm not even adding anything else to the apples or doing anything else with it. It is a process that takes quite a bit of time. Obviously, especially that first part of peeling and cutting the apples. So I always like to put on a show or something to watch or listen to a podcast or something just to make myself, enjoy this a little bit more. And again, this is just something super easy to grab, like those little jars. I'm again always taking those with me on the weekends whenever we're traveling somewhere because it's just so easy to either eat this on its own as like a little snack, or more often what I would do is mix it with some plain white yogurt, or as well how I've been using it at home is for breakfast. So I will make some oatmeal and then put this applesauce into it. And actually I eat that as well and my baby eats it too. And this is me making some blueberry muffins. So I'm getting all the ingredients ready. You can, by the way, find those in the description of the video. It's a recipe I've used for the first time and I was actually quite happy with it. The thing is, I don't make muffins all that often because I just find it, I don't know, maybe it's the forms that I'm using that it feels like very tedious to fill them up. And then, you know, since there are these silicone ones, I mean, it's super easy to get the muffins out of them, but it's like these wobbly, you know, forms that don't hold their shape very well. And so they kind of tend to, you know, spoil the mixture everywhere or whatever. I don't know what it is, but we really did like those blueberry muffins. So maybe I'm going to make those more often now.
Walk me in the morning sun, tell me I'm a lucky one. I'm riding on the wave of a notion that I could be brave. Is there anything good on the radio? Turn it up loud and let me know how it used to be before anyone heard of you and me. Ooh.
So I've mixed up all of the ingredients for the dough. At the very end, I added the blueberries as well.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling great. Running out of town just to celebrate. The fortune's here to stay. A one-way ticket to a better day. A rocking chair and a glass of wine. I'm the shade of a tree and I'm feeling fine. There's not a lot to ask when life is going by so fast. One breath away. Step up and say, hold on to what is real. The love you feel is like water in a glass. Don't try to separate the ones you hate from the ones that you don't know. 'Cause there's a part of you that never could let go. I'm chasing shadows around the place. It shouldn't take long now in any case. As long as there is light, pretending I could stay the night. One breath away.
Then I filled all the forms. I didn't butter the forms or put any of like the paper cups in them or anything, just straight from the bowl into those silicone forms. All right, and the other thing is, as you can see here, I had more dough than the amount of forms. So I had still dough left over once I filled up all of my forms. So I had to bake that first batch, empty them up, and then do another one, which like obviously that has extended the whole process to a much longer time. So again, that was another thing. But we really like those muffins. So who knows, maybe in the future there will be more of them. And last but not least, this is something we absolutely loved. I, for the very first time, have tried to make pulled pork. So ever since I got this enameled cast iron Dutch oven for Christmas, I have been wanting to do a lot more with it than just bake bread. So I do make bread in it once a week or usually twice a week at least. But so, I mean, it does get used very often, but I really wanted to learn, or still want to learn, how to use it to kind of its full potential. And I thought that this pulled pork is going to be a great test run or just a great thing to learn how to do. And I was so right. It was so delicious. But so what I did is I just first browned the meat. So I've put some lard into the pot, then put it on really high, brown the meat. And then I have taken it out. I've put some onions into the pot instead, browned those, together with some garlic as well. I've added this barbecue sauce to it, or like a barbecue marinade or whatever. And I then added some frozen chicken broth. I let that thaw out, and then I've put the pork meat back into the pot. And like this, I've let it simmer for, I want to say maybe 4 hours, something like that, 4 or 5-ish hours. I kept checking it every now and then. I've only had it on like the second level out of 9 on the stove, so it was just barely simmering in there. And when I pulled it out, it was just falling apart, and it was so nice. And I've pulled it all apart, and I didn't film this, but what I did with the leftover sauce in the pot, I've reduced it down. So just turn on the temperature to a much higher level and reduced it down. And then I've put the pork meat back into it so that it got coated in all of that sauce. And so the way we used it, we were going on a hike over the weekend, and I have found this recipe for tortillas. The recipe that you see me use, it's in the cookbook in front of me, was actually using chicken meat, but I thought that this pulled pork is going to work just as well. And so or not tortillas, sorry, like a burrito. So what this recipe called for was some rice. So the first thing I did was wash and cook some rice. And then I started chopping up the vegetables. I had some celery in there. I had a red pepper and also a lot of spring onions, we call them here. I think I've heard the name scallions as well. I think that's the same thing. It had quite a lot of those. So all those vegetables. Browning those in a pan, and as they were browning, I also zested and then juiced 1 lemon. Once all those vegetables got a little bit softer, I added some sliced garlic. And then the cooked rice went into the pot. Right after that, I added all that lemon juice and zest. And then I mixed in that pulled pork, which I had in the fridge from the day before, with a little bit more of that barbecue sauce. And then it was time to put that mixture into the tortillas. So I added the mixture and then also some crumbled feta cheese, and I wrapped them up. Now I have to say I am not the best tortilla wrapper, so if you have a better way to do it, please do let me know, because I feel like I'm always struggling with this step. But anyways, that didn't change the fact that they were just so great, and it was so nice to have something like this, which was like a full meal on our hike, you know, in the middle of the woods, to be able to have something like this. And it was also super easy to feed this to the baby, because what I did for her is I've just put some of that mixture from the pan into like a little container just for her, so she didn't have the tortilla, you know, wrapped into it. If you don't know, my baby is 1 year and 4 months old, so she in no way can eat her own burrito yet, but this worked for her really well. And that is all the inspiration I had for you today. If you have any of your own food to go recipes, please do share them in the comments below. I would be happy to have some inspiration myself. And I'll see you next week. Bye.